found her gold earring on the floor first, just one. The other was never recovered. Then they found her backpack in the study lounge, laptop still inside, wallet untouched. Her phone was missing, but everything else remained, like she'd simply stood up and walked away from her life. But Maya Richardson hadn't walked away. Security footage would later show her entering Whitman Hall at 6:45 that October evening in 1993. The cameras never showed her leaving. How does a 20-year-old student vanish from a locked building at Hudson Valley University in Upper Manhattan? How does she enter through one door and never exit through any of them? The answer was hidden behind a wall for 30 years. But before they found her body, before the forensic evidence and the trial and the conviction that would finally come, in 2023, there was just a Thursday evening that started like any other and ended with a young woman gone, disappeared, erased. This is how it happened. The autumn leaves swirled across the quad that October evening, gathering in corners of Gothic archways and against the stone steps of century-old buildings. Hudson Valley University, with its views of the Hudson River, was alive with students hurrying between classes. By 7:30, most academic buildings had emptied. Lights flickered off in lecture halls. Professors locked their offices and headed home. But in the psychology department on the 3rd floor of Whitman Hall, one light remained on. Maya Richardson was still there. 20 years old, junior year, psychology major. She'd stayed late after her abnormal psychology seminar to discuss her research paper with Professor Vincent Hartley. 15 minutes, that's all it was supposed to be. Her roommate Jessica Chen expected her back at their dorm by 8. They had plans to watch a movie, eat pizza, decompress before Friday classes. Jessica called Maya's cell phone at 8:15, straight to voicemail. She called again at 8:30, same thing. By 9 o'clock, panic settling in her chest, Jessica walked to Whitman Hall. The building was locked, dark, except for security lights. She called Maya's boyfriend, Eric Torres. He hadn't heard from her either. They'd planned to meet for breakfast the next morning. Eric tried her phone. Nothing. He checked the library, the student union, the coffee shop on Amsterdam Avenue where Maya sometimes studied late. No one had seen her. By 10 o'clock, they called campus security. And that's when the question that would haunt them for 3 decades began. Where was Maya Richardson? What they didn't know yet was that she'd never left the building. What they couldn't imagine was that the professor she'd met with that evening, the one who would pass a polygraph test and walk free for 30 years, had sealed her body behind a false wall 20 feet from his office. And what none of them suspected was that a single fabric fiber, trapped in canvas for 3 decades, would finally bring the truth to light. The Hudson Valley University Department of Public Safety took the report seriously. A female student, last seen in an academic building, not answering her phone, out of character. They checked Whitman Hall. The building was empty. Professor Hartley's office was locked, dark. Security footage showed Maya entering Whitman Hall at 6:45 that evening, walking up the main staircase. But the footage never showed her leaving. Hit subscribe if you believe everyone should be treated fairly. Only haters, manipulators, and trolls won't subscribe. If you believe people should be treated fairly, hit subscribe. Trolls won't. Comment, "I stand for justice," if you're not siding with the bully. The New York Police Department was notified at midnight. Missing persons detectives arrived on campus by 1 a.m. Detective Sarah Martinez led the investigation. She was 42, veteran of the NYPD, mother of 2 daughters herself. When she heard the details, a young woman disappearing from a locked building with no footage of her exit, every instinct told her this was bad. The search began immediately. Officers swept Whitman Hall room by room, lecture halls, offices, storage closets, bathrooms. They checked windows, fire exits, basement access points. They found Maya's backpack in a 3rd-floor study lounge. Her laptop was inside. Her textbooks, her wallet with ID and credit cards. Her phone was missing. They found something else in that study lounge. On the floor, partially hidden under a chair, a single gold earring. Jessica identified it immediately. Maya had been wearing those earrings that afternoon. She never took them off. They'd been a gift from her grandmother. Detective Martinez interviewed Jessica first in the campus security office while officers continued searching the building. "Tell me about Maya," Martinez said. Jessica was 21, computer science major, Maya's roommate since freshman year. She twisted a tissue in her hands, eyes red from crying. "She's the most responsible person I know. She doesn't just disappear. Something happened to her." "When did you last see her?" "Around 5:30. She was getting ready for her meeting with Professor Hartley. She seemed nervous." "Nervous? How?" Jessica hesitated. "Maya had been having problems with him. Professor Hartley. He made her uncomfortable." Martinez leaned forward. "What kind of problems?" He'd been inappropriate with her. Comments about her appearance, how she dressed, inviting her to off-campus coffee, to his apartment to discuss research. Maya kept declining. She tried to handle it professionally, but it was escalating. She was planning to report him after the semester ended. She didn't want to jeopardize her grade. Did she tell anyone else about this? Eric knew, and our friend Rebecca, maybe some others in her seminar. Martinez made notes. Did Professor Hartley know Maya was planning to report him? I don't think so. Maya was careful. She was documenting everything, keeping emails, but she hadn't confronted him. They found Eric Torres at 3 a.m., sitting in the campus security lobby, refusing to leave until there was news. He was 22, senior year, engineering major. He and Maya had been together for 18 months. He looked destroyed. When did you last talk to Maya? Martinez asked. Yesterday, Wednesday afternoon. We had lunch together at the dining hall. Eric's voice was flat, hollow. She told me about the meeting with Hartley. She didn't want to go alone, but she thought it would be worse if someone went with her. She promised to call me right after. Did Maya tell you specifics about Professor Hartley's behavior? Eric's jaw tightened. He was harassing her for months. Inappropriate emails, comments in class, always finding reasons to keep her after. Maya was terrified of him, but she needed the class for her major. She was trapped. Why didn't she report him earlier? Because the system doesn't protect students like Maya. She's on scholarship. Full ride. Her family can't afford this place. If Hartley retaliated, if he failed her or got her kicked out of the program, she'd lose everything. So she tried to manage it, to survive until the semester ended. Eric's voice broke. I should have done something. I should have made her report him. This isn't your fault, Martinez said quietly. Then where is she? They brought Professor Vincent Hartley in for questioning at 6 a.m. Friday morning. He was 48 years old, tenured faculty, published author, married with 2 teenage children. He lived in a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, drove a Mercedes, belonged to an exclusive faculty club. He arrived at the precinct with a lawyer. I'm happy to cooperate, Hartley said smoothly, settling into the interview room chair. This is a terrible situation. I hope Maya is found safe. When did you last see Maya Richardson? Martinez asked. Thursday afternoon. She came to my office around 6:45 for a scheduled meeting to discuss her research paper. How long did this meeting last? 15 minutes, perhaps 20. We discussed her thesis statement, her sources. I gave her some feedback. She left around 7, maybe 7:10. Did she seem upset? Not at all. She seemed fine, engaged with the material. Where did she go when she left your office? I assume she went home. I don't monitor my students' movements after meetings. Martinez slid a photograph across the table. Maya's earring. We found this in the study lounge on the 3rd floor. Any idea how it got there? Hartley barely glanced at it. No idea. Students use that lounge constantly. Could have been there for days. Her backpack was also there, with her wallet, her laptop, everything except her phone. Perhaps she forgot it. Students are often distracted. Security footage shows Maya entering Whitman Hall at 6:45. It never shows her leaving. Can you explain that? Hartley's lawyer intervened. My client has already stated he met with Miss Richardson briefly, and she left his office. He has no knowledge of her movements after that meeting. Did Maya Richardson ever make you uncomfortable, Professor? Martinez asked. I'm sorry. Did she ever make inappropriate advances towards you? Try to initiate personal relationships beyond professional boundaries? Hartley's expression remained neutral, but his lawyer shifted. What are you implying? I'm asking a question. Maya was a student like any other, professional, interested in psychology. Nothing inappropriate ever occurred. They had to let him go. No evidence, no witnesses, just suspicions and a missing student. The search expanded. Police divers checked the Hudson River. Dogs tracked scents across campus. Helicopters swept Riverside Park and surrounding neighborhoods. Maya's face appeared on news broadcasts across the city. Her parents, Robert and Linda Richardson, drove up from Virginia, standing at press conferences, begging for information. Our daughter is smart, careful, responsible, Linda said, voice shaking. She wouldn't just disappear. Someone knows something. Please, if you've seen her, if you know anything, come forward. But days passed with no leads. Maya's phone was never found. No activity on her credit cards, no bank withdrawals. It was as if she'd evaporated. Then the rumors started. It began in whispers across campus, in dining halls, in dorm rooms, in late-night conversations that students swore were just speculation. Maybe Maya had run away. Maybe the pressure of school was too much. Maybe she'd wanted to escape. Or maybe, some students suggested, looking sideways at each other, maybe Eric had something to do with it. The boyfriend. It's always the boyfriend, isn't it? Eric had been the last person Maya planned to call. Eric had access to her schedule. Eric knew she'd be in Whitman Hall that evening. And there were whispers, unverified rumors that their relationship wasn't perfect, that they'd been arguing lately about the future, about whether Maya should report Hartley's harassment. Jessica defended Eric furiously. That's insane. Eric loved Maya. He would never hurt her. But Rebecca Silva, another friend from Maya's psychology seminar, wasn't so sure. She told police that Eric had seemed jealous lately, possessive. He didn't like how much time Maya spent studying. He wanted her to transfer to a different program, away from Hartley's influence. They fought about it. The police investigated Eric thoroughly. They checked his alibi for Thursday evening. He'd been in the engineering lab from 5 until 9:30, working on a project with 3 other students. All 3 confirmed it. Security footage from the engineering building corroborated it. Eric was cleared, but the rumors didn't stop. Meanwhile, other students who knew about Professor Hartley's behavior stayed silent. There was a group on campus, an informal network of graduate students and teaching assistants who protected favored faculty members. They called themselves the Academic Excellence Committee. But everyone knew what they really were: a shield for professors who crossed lines. Several students in Maya's seminar had witnessed Hartley's inappropriate comments. They'd seen him touch her shoulder, stand too close, keep her after class unnecessarily. But when police interviewed them, they claimed ignorance. "Professor Hartley is a respected scholar," one graduate assistant said. "I never saw anything inappropriate." "Maya seemed fine in class," another student offered. Maybe she was struggling with personal issues. Detective Martinez recognized the pattern: institutional protection. The university's reputation mattered more than one missing student. If Hartley was guilty of harassment, it would mean lawsuits, investigations, media scrutiny. Better to let the story die quietly. But Martinez wouldn't let it die. She obtained warrants for Hartley's office, his car, his home. The search turned up nothing suspicious. No blood evidence, no signs of struggle. Hartley's computers were clean. His phone record showed no calls to Maya outside of professional communication. They checked Whitman Hall's basement. Old tunnels connected several campus buildings, remnants of the university's 19th century construction. Most were locked, inaccessible to students. But maintenance workers had keys. Police searched every tunnel, every access point. Nothing. Weeks became months. The media attention faded. Maya's parents returned to Virginia, broken. They kept her dorm room paid for through the semester, hoping she'd come back. She never did. Eric Torres graduated in May 1994. He left New York immediately, unable to bear the campus where Maya had disappeared. Jessica Chen transferred to MIT at the end of freshman year. Too many ghosts at Hudson Valley. Professor Hartley continued teaching. The university quietly reassigned him to different courses, kept him away from young female students. There were conditions attached to his continued employment, but nothing public, nothing that would damage his reputation permanently. Years passed. 1995, 2000, 2005. Maya Richardson became a cold case, one file among thousands in NYPD storage. Her parents never stopped searching, never stopped hoping, but hope became thinner each year. Detective Martinez retired in 2008. She'd worked hundreds of cases, but Maya's disappearance haunted her. The missing student she couldn't find, the professor she couldn't prove guilty, the system that had failed to protect a young woman. In 2010, Professor Vincent Hartley retired from Hudson Valley University with full honors. The psychology department threw him a party. Former students gave speeches about his mentorship. His wife stood beside him, smiling. He moved to upstate New York, a quiet town near the Catskills. He wrote books, gave occasional lectures, lived comfortably on his pension. And Maya Richardson remained missing until 2023. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Hudson Valley University was renovating Whitman Hall, updating the building for modern accessibility standards. Construction crews were gutting the third floor, removing old walls, exposing original architecture. On March 15, 2023, workers discovered something behind a false wall in what had been a storage closet near Professor Hartley's old office. A space, roughly 4 feet by 6 feet, sealed off decades ago. And inside that space, wrapped in deteriorated canvas, were skeletal remains. The NYPD was called immediately. Forensic teams excavated the space carefully. The remains were female, approximately 5'4", early 20s. Dental records confirmed what everyone feared. Maya Richardson had been found. The medical examiner determined cause of death: blunt force trauma to the skull, consistent with being struck from behind. Time of death: approximately 30 years ago, autumn 1993. She had been in that wall the entire time, while students attended classes 20 feet away, while police searched the building, while her parents stood on the steps below begging for information. She'd been there all along. The discovery reopened the investigation. The new lead detective was James Walsh, 45, who'd been a rookie officer when Maya first disappeared. He remembered the case, remembered the frustration of knowing something was wrong, but being unable to prove it. "We're going to find who did this," Walsh told Maya's parents at a press conference. Robert and Linda Richardson were in their 70s now, gray-haired, worn down by 30 years of grief. Whoever is responsible will be held accountable. But Vincent Hartley was 78 years old, living in a nursing care facility in the Catskills. He'd suffered a stroke in 2020, leaving him partially paralyzed and cognitively impaired. Prosecuting him would be complicated. Still, Walsh pushed forward. They needed evidence. The forensic team examined every inch of that hidden space. They found fabric fragments, deteriorated but analyzable. They found hair samples that didn't belong to Maya. They found something else: microscopic fibers embedded in the canvas that had wrapped Maya's body. The fibers were distinctive: a specific blend of wool and cashmere from a high-end men's suit, likely custom-made. The lab ran the analysis through databases, tracked down manufacturers. The suit had been made by a tailor in Brooklyn Heights, commissioned in 1992. Customer records had been digitized years ago as part of the shop's archival project. Only 12 suits in that specific fabric had been made. One of them had been ordered by Vincent Hartley, but they needed more. Fabric alone wasn't enough for prosecution after 30 years. Walsh reviewed the original case files. He read every interview, every report, every piece of evidence that Martinez had collected. And he found something everyone had missed. In 1993, campus security had collected routine surveillance footage from all academic buildings. Most of it had been reviewed and discarded. But there was one camera that no one had checked thoroughly: a maintenance camera in the Whitman Hall basement, installed to monitor HVAC equipment. The footage had been archived, forgotten in the university's old security office basement. Walsh obtained a warrant and retrieved the tapes. The quality was poor, grainy, black and white. But it was there. Thursday, October 21st, 1993. The timestamp read 8:47 p.m. A figure appeared on the camera, emerging from a stairwell that led to the 3rd floor. The person was carrying something large, wrapped in canvas. The figure moved to a maintenance door, unlocked it, disappeared inside. The camera angle didn't capture the face clearly, but it captured something else. The person was wearing a distinctive watch, visible on their left wrist when they reached for the door handle. A vintage Omega, gold with a black leather band. In Professor Hartley's 1993 faculty photo, clearly visible in the archived university directory, he was wearing that exact watch. They had him. Walsh brought the evidence to the Manhattan District Attorney's office. Prosecutors reviewed everything: the fabric evidence, the security footage, the original witness statements about Hartley's harassment. the hidden space behind his office. In June 2023, Vincent Hartley was arrested at his nursing facility. The media explosion was instantaneous. 30-year-old cold case solved. Respected professor charged with murder. The story dominated headlines across the country. Hartley's defense attorneys argued he was too ill to stand trial. Medical experts examined him and determined he was competent enough to understand the charges, though his ability to assist in his defense was limited. The trial began in September 2023. Maya's parents sat in the courtroom every day. Robert in a wheelchair now, Linda beside him, holding his hand. Eric Torres flew in from Seattle, where he'd built a new life. Jessica Chen came from San Francisco. Rebecca Silva attended remotely. The prosecution laid out their case. The harassment Maya had documented in emails, witnessed by classmates. The meeting scheduled for Thursday evening. The security footage showing Maya entering but never leaving. The hidden space behind Hartley's office. The fabric evidence. The watch. Maya Richardson rejected Professor Hartley's advances, the prosecutor told the jury. She was planning to report him. He knew his career would be destroyed. So he silenced her. He killed her and hid her body in a space only he had access to, a space he knew would never be discovered. And he went on with his life, while her parents suffered for 30 years. The defense argued the evidence was circumstantial. The fabric could have come from anywhere. The security footage was too grainy to make a positive identification. The hidden space could have been accessed by maintenance workers. Hartley was an old man with dementia. This was a rush to judgment after decades of inaction. Hartley himself didn't testify. He sat in the courtroom, thin and frail, showing little emotion. His wife had divorced him in 2015. His children didn't attend the trial. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom erupted. Linda Richardson sobbed. Robert closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. Eric Torres stood and walked out, unable to watch anymore. Hartley showed no reaction. He was led away in handcuffs, back to the facility where he would await sentencing. The sentencing hearing was held in November 2023. Hartley, now 79, appeared via video link. The judge handed down 25 years to life. "You abused your position of authority," the judge said. "You preyed on a young woman who trusted you. You killed her and hid her body, allowing her family to suffer decades of uncertainty. This sentence reflects the severity of your crimes and the suffering you caused." Hartley would likely die in prison. His health was failing. He was transferred to a facility that could accommodate his medical needs. For Maya's family, the conviction brought a complicated mix of emotions. Not relief, not closure, but something else. Acknowledgement. Validation that their daughter hadn't simply disappeared, that her life mattered, that justice, though delayed 30 years, had finally arrived. Maya was bright and kind and full of potential, Linda said at a press conference after the sentencing. She wanted to help people, to study psychology, to make a difference. Instead, a man in power decided her life was disposable. He took everything from her, from us, but he couldn't erase her memory. We'll never stop loving her. We'll never stop missing her. The university issued a formal apology. They established the Maya Richardson Scholarship Fund for students studying psychology and advocating for campus safety reforms. They installed new security systems, created better protocols for reporting harassment, trained faculty on appropriate boundaries. But the damage was done. For 30 years, Maya had been sealed behind a wall while classes continued, while students laughed and studied and lived, oblivious to the tragedy within their midst. Eric Torres attended Maya's funeral in December 2023. Her remains were finally released to her family. She was buried in Virginia, near her grandmother, who'd given her those gold earrings. Eric stood at the grave, hands in his pockets, looking at the headstone. Maya Richardson, 1973 to 1993. Beloved daughter, friend, light extinguished too soon, forever in our hearts. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry it took so long. Jessica Chen placed flowers on the grave. White roses, Maya's favorite. You deserved so much better, she said. From all of us. From the system that failed you. The investigation revealed other troubling details. Police discovered that 3 other female students had reported inappropriate behavior by Professor Hartley between 1989 and 1992. All 3 reports had been filed with the university's Title IX office. All 3 had been quietly settled with non-disclosure agreements. The university paid undisclosed sums to these women in exchange for their silence. Hartley received private reprimands, but continued teaching. No public action was taken. No other students were warned. Maya Richardson never knew she wasn't Hartley's first target. She'd tried to navigate the situation alone, unaware that others had tried and been silenced by institutional machinery designed to protect reputation over safety. The 3 women came forward after Hartley's conviction. They were in their 50s now, living across the country, carrying decades of trauma. They spoke about the guilt of accepting those settlements, of wondering if speaking out might have prevented Maya's death. We were young, one woman said. We needed our degrees. They made us feel like reporting him would destroy our futures. So we took their money and their NDAs, and we stayed quiet. And a girl died because the system prioritized a professor over students' safety. Their stories sparked a broader reckoning. Other universities examined their policies. Survivors of campus harassment found courage to speak out. Legislation was proposed to ban NDAs in cases involving sexual misconduct by educators. Maya's death became a catalyst for change, though it came 30 years too late to save her. Detective Walsh kept Maya's case file on his desk even after the conviction. Not because the case was open, but because he needed to remember. Remember what could happen when systems failed, when people in power abused it, when institutions chose reputation over truth. He'd worked the case for less than a year, but it had consumed him the same way it had consumed Martinez decades earlier. Some cases became part of you, he realized. They changed how you saw the world. On a cold January afternoon in 2024, Walsh drove to Virginia. He knocked on the door of a modest house in Richmond. Linda Richardson answered. She looked tired but stronger than she had in the courtroom. Detective Walsh, I wasn't expecting you. I wanted to give you this, Walsh said, handing her a folder. The final report, everything we found, everything that happened. It's over now. Linda took the folder. Is it? Is it really over? The case is closed. Hartley's in prison, but I know that doesn't bring her back. No, Linda said quietly. Nothing brings her back, but at least we know. At least she can rest now. She paused. Would you like to come in? I have something to show you. Walsh followed her inside. The house was filled with photographs. Maya as a baby, as a child, as a teenager. Maya in her high school graduation gown. Maya on her first day at Hudson Valley University, smiling at the camera, full of hope. Linda led him to a small room, converted into a memorial. More photos, awards Maya had won, papers she'd written, a scholarship certificate, letters from friends, and in the center, a portrait. Maya at 20 years old, painted from a photograph. She wore the gold earrings. She looked happy. "This is how I remember her," Linda said. "Not the crime scene photos, not the courtroom evidence. This. My daughter, who loved learning, who wanted to help people, who had her whole life ahead of her." Walsh stood there, looking at the portrait, feeling the weight of 30 years of grief condensed into this room. "She mattered," he said. "Yes," Linda whispered. "She did." Back in New York, life continued. Hudson Valley University held its spring semester classes. Students walked across the quad where Maya had once walked. They attended lectures in Whitman Hall, renovated now, modern and bright. A plaque had been installed on the 3rd floor. Small, discreet, easily missed if you weren't looking. In memory of May Richardson, 1973 to 1993, student, scholar, voice for justice. May we never forget. Most students passed it without noticing. But some stopped, read it, wondered about the story. Some looked up her name, found articles, learned what had happened. And some, young women studying psychology or sociology or any of a dozen other subjects, stood before that plaque and felt something shift inside them. A recognition, an understanding that what happened to Maya could have happened to them. That systems of power weren't always protective, that speaking out carried risks, but also that silence carried worse risks. That truth, eventually, found its way to light. That 30 years wasn't too long for justice. Eric Torres never returned to New York after the funeral. He'd built a different life in Seattle, married, had children. But he thought about Maya often. On October 21st every year, he took the day off work, went somewhere quiet, and remembered her laugh, her ambition, the way she'd talked about her research, eyes bright with passion, the future they'd imagined, vaguely, the way young people do, before it all ended. He told his children about her when they were old enough to understand. About a girl he'd loved, who'd been killed by someone who should have protected her. About how the world wasn't always safe, especially for women, especially for those who challenged power. "What happened to the professor?" his daughter asked. "He went to prison. He'll die there." "Good," she said fiercely. She was 14, studying hard, planning for college. He deserved it. "Yes," Eric said. "He did. But Maya deserved to live." That's what we have to remember. Not just that bad people get punished, but that good people deserve protection. That we all have to speak up when we see wrong. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Jessica Chen carried her own memories. She'd become a successful software engineer, working on artificial intelligence safety protocols. She thought often about how technology might have changed Maya's story. Modern surveillance systems, GPS tracking, the digital evidence that would have been available. But she also understood that technology alone wouldn't have saved Maya. The problem wasn't cameras or phones. The problem was power, and who got to wield it, and who paid the price when it was abused. She donated regularly to the Maya Richardson Scholarship Fund. She mentored young women in tech, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds, teaching them to advocate for themselves, to document harassment, to speak truth even when institutions resisted. "Someone tried to erase my friend," she told these young women, tried to make her disappear, to make her story not matter. But she fought back the only way she could. She documented everything. She tried to hold power accountable. And even though it didn't save her, it helped bring her killer to justice 30 years later. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. The case reverberated through academic communities nationwide. Other cold cases involving missing students were reopened. Families who'd been told their daughters or sons had simply run away demanded new investigations. Universities audited their Title IX offices, their harassment protocols, their institutional responses to power imbalances. Change came slowly, unevenly, but it came. Professor Vincent Hartley died in prison on April 3, 2025. He was 80 years old. He'd served 18 months of his sentence. His death was listed as natural causes, complications from his earlier stroke. There was no funeral, no memorial. His children declined to claim his body. He was buried in a prison cemetery, a numbered grave marker with no name. Maya's family was notified. They felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just emptiness where rage and grief had burned for 32 years. "He's gone," Linda said to Robert. They sat in their living room, the memorial room door open, Maya's portrait visible. "It doesn't change anything," Robert replied. His health had deteriorated after the trial. The stress, the decades of not knowing, had taken their toll. "No," Linda agreed. "But it's done. He can't hurt anyone else." They sat in silence, holding hands, looking at their daughter's face frozen forever at 20 years old. Young, hopeful, unaware of what was coming. "I still see her sometimes," Linda whispered. "In my dreams. She's 40, 50, all the ages she should have been. She has children, a career, a life. And then I wake up and remember." "I know," Robert said. "I know." In Manhattan, Detective Walsh received the notification of Hartley's death. He filed it with the case documents, closed the folder, and put it in the archive. Case closed. Finally, completely, irrevocably closed. He walked out of the precinct that evening, took the subway uptown, got off at the 116th Street station. He walked to Hudson Valley's campus, to Whitman Hall, and stood looking up at the third-floor windows. Somewhere behind that renovated facade, Maya Richardson had died. Somewhere in that building, a young woman's future had been stolen by a man who believed his career mattered more than her life. Walsh thought about all the cases he'd worked, the victims who got justice and those who didn't, the families who found closure and those who never would. Maya's case had ended as well as it could, given the circumstances. The killer convicted, the victim found, laid to rest, the family given answers. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Because Maya Richardson should have graduated in 1995. Should have become a psychologist, helped people, made the difference she'd dreamed of making. Should have lived to 40, 50, 80 years old. Should have had the chance to become who she was meant to be. And that chance was gone forever. Stolen by someone who saw her not as a person, but as a threat to his power, his reputation, his comfortable life. Walsh turned away from the building and walked back to the subway. The campus was quiet. Students in their dorms studying or sleeping. The city hummed around him, millions of lives intersecting, continuing. Maya's life had ended here, but her story would continue, told and retold, a cautionary tale and a call to action. A reminder that justice delayed was still justice, that truth could wait 30 years and still surface, that institutional power could be challenged, confronted, overcome, that every life mattered, even those the world tried to forget. Especially those. The wind picked up, rustling through trees that Maya had once walked beneath. The Hudson River flowed past, dark and constant. And somewhere in that city of millions, in quiet moments, people who'd known Maya Richardson or known of her still paused and remembered. A student who disappeared, a voice that had been silenced, a life that should have been. and a truth that refused to stay buried. Hit subscribe if you believe everyone should be treated fairly. Only haters, manipulators, and trolls won't subscribe. If you believe people should be treated fairly, hit subscribe. Trolls won't. Comment, "I stand for justice," if you're not siding with the bully.